I thought I had married my soulmate, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought I had found the perfect person to spend my life with. At first, everything seemed like a fairy tale. I believed in love and had always dreamed of meeting someone who would love and care for me as much as I would for them. That dream seemed to come true one beautiful day when I attended a wedding. The wedding was full of life, laughter, and joy. Everywhere I looked, people were smiling, dancing, and enjoying themselves. It was a celebration of love, and I felt lucky to be part of it. I was surrounded by friends, and we were all having a great time. Amidst the crowd, I noticed a man standing quietly, watching the festivities from a distance. He seemed different from everyone else. While others danced and laughed, he stood calmly observing. There was something about him that caught my attention. He was tall and handsome, dressed neatly in a suit that made him look confident and elegant. Although he didn't speak to anyone, I could feel his eyes on me. Every now and then I would catch him looking in my direction, but he would quickly look away when our eyes met. His silence made him mysterious, and I couldn't help but wonder who he was. The day passed and I didn't speak to him. He never approached me, and I didn't have the courage to walk up to him either. But his presence lingered in my mind. After the wedding, I thought I would never see him again. I didn't even know his name, and yet for some reason I couldn't stop thinking about him. 2 days later, I received a message on my phone. It was from an unknown number. The message read, "Hi, I saw you at the wedding. Can we talk?" I was surprised and a little confused. Who could this be? I replied, asking who it was. The reply came quickly. I'm the man from the wedding. You looked beautiful and I want to get to know you. His words caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say at first. A part of me was cautious. I didn't know anything about him, yet his message made me curious. He seemed polite and respectful, and his words felt genuine. After thinking for a while, I decided to reply. "Okay, we can talk," I said. That simple message marked the beginning of something new in my life. We started texting and our conversations flowed easily. He was kind, polite, and always knew the right things to say. He made me feel special, like I was the most important person in the world. He told me he admired my smile and the way I carried myself. He said he couldn't stop thinking about me after the wedding. His words were sweet and flattering, and they made me smile. For 2 days we talked nonstop. From morning until night, our phones kept us connected. He asked about my likes and dislikes, my dreams, and my life. He seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. The more we talked, the more comfortable I felt with him. It felt like I had known him for years, even though we had only just started speaking. On the 3rd day, he said something that surprised me. He told me he wanted to marry me. He said, "I see you as my wife and the mother of my children." His words were unexpected, and I didn't know how to respond. It all felt so sudden. We had just met and I barely knew him. How could he already be so sure about me? I asked him, "But we don't even know each other. How can you be so sure?" He replied with confidence, "I just know. You are the one for me. Please say yes. I will make you happy." His words touched my heart. He sounded sincere, and a part of me wanted to believe him. I had always dreamed of finding someone who would love me unconditionally, and he seemed to be offering just that. After thinking about it, I decided to take a chance. Yes, I said, not fully understanding how much this decision would change my life. Our wedding happened quickly. It was small and simple, with only close family and friends in attendance. I wore a white dress and he wore a suit. He looked happy, and his happiness made me feel like I had made the right choice. I believed I had found the perfect partner, someone who would love and care for me forever. In the beginning, everything seemed perfect. He was attentive, kind, and thoughtful. He would surprise me with small gifts and say sweet things that made me smile. He would hold my hand and tell me I was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. I felt lucky to have him in my life. Seemed like all my dreams were finally coming true. For the first few weeks, I felt like I was living in a dream. We would spend hours talking about our future and the family we wanted to build together. He would tell me how much he loved me and how he couldn't imagine his life without me. His words filled me with hope and happiness. Looking back now, I realize that I was swept away by the excitement of it all. I didn't take the time to truly get to know him. I believed in the idea of love at first sight and let my emotions guide my decisions. At that moment, I thought I had everything I had ever wanted. But as perfect as everything seemed, life has a way of revealing the truth, no matter how hard we try to ignore it. What started as a dream would soon turn into something I never expected. The early days of my marriage were filled with joy and hope. I believed I had made the right choice and that my life was finally on the right path. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I began to notice small things that didn't feel right. At first they seemed insignificant, easy to brush off, but slowly they grew into signs I could no longer ignore. It started with little changes in his behavior. He was no longer as attentive as he had been in the beginning. The sweet words and loving gestures that had once been so frequent became less common. I told myself that it was normal, that people settle into routines after the excitement of marriage wears off. But deep down, I felt a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. One day, I noticed him smiling at his phone while we were sitting together. It wasn't unusual for people to smile at their phones, but there was something different about the way he quickly put it away when I asked who he was texting. "Just a friend," he said casually. His tone was light, but I couldn't help but feel that he was hiding something. I didn't press him further, trusting that it really was just a friend. Over time, these moments became more frequent. He would step out of the room to take phone calls or turn his phone screen away when I walked by. He began coming home later than usual, explaining that work was keeping him busy. I wanted to believe him, so I convinced myself that I was imagining things. After all, he had always been kind and caring. Why would he lie to me? But the changes didn't stop. He stopped spending as much time with me. When we were together, it felt like his mind was somewhere else. The warmth and connection that had once been the foundation of our relationship seemed to be fading. I tried to bring it up with him, but he would dismiss my concerns. "You're overthinking," he would say, brushing my worries aside. One evening, while he was in another room, he left his phone on the table. It was unlocked, and for the first time I felt the urge to look at it. My heart raced as I picked it up, but I hesitated. I wanted to trust him, but something inside me told me that I needed to know the truth. Finally, I opened it, and what I saw confirmed my worst fears. There were messages from another woman. They were romantic, filled with words of love and affection. He called her my love and my everything, words he hadn't said to me in months. My hands trembled as I scrolled through their conversations. He had been buying her gifts, taking her out, and even spending time with her children. The realization hit me like a wave. He wasn't just texting her, he was deeply involved in her life. I felt a knot in my stomach as I recognized the woman. She was from my village, someone I had known casually. She wasn't younger or more beautiful than me, but that didn't seem to matter. What hurt the most was learning that their relationship had started long before we were married. Even after our wedding, he continued to see her, lying to me every step of the way. My mind raced with questions. Why would he do this to me? What did I do wrong? I had trusted him completely, believing that he was the man he claimed to be. Now I felt like my entire marriage was built on lies. When he returned home that evening, I confronted him. I showed him his phone and asked, what is this? He looked at me, his face a mix of shock and guilt. I'm sorry, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It was a mistake. His apology only fueled my anger. A mistake? I shouted, tears streaming down my face. You promised to love me, to be faithful to me, and this is what you've been doing behind my back? He tried to explain, saying that it didn't mean anything, that he still loved me and wanted to make things right. But his words felt hollow. How could I believe him after everything I had seen? That night I cried myself to sleep. My heart felt heavy with pain and betrayal. I didn't know what to do or who to turn to. I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone, not even my parents. I felt ashamed, as if his actions were somehow my fault. I kept everything inside, hoping that things would somehow get better. In the days that followed, he begged for forgiveness. He promised that he would change, that he would never see her again. For the sake of our marriage and the children we planned to have, I decided to give him another chance. I wanted to believe that he could change, that we could move past this and rebuild what we had. But even as I tried to forgive him, the cracks in our relationship only grew deeper. I couldn't forget what I had seen or how it had made me feel. The trust that once held us together was shattered, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't put the pieces back together. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a long and painful journey. After discovering his betrayal, I felt as if my world had been turned upside down. But despite the pain and anger consuming me, I couldn't let go so easily. Part of me wanted to believe his apologies, his promises to change, and his desperate pleas for forgiveness. The other part of me, however, couldn't forget the messages, the lies, and the broken trust. Still, I decided to stay, hoping against hope that things could get better. His apologies seemed sincere at first. He said all the things I wanted to hear. I made a mistake. You are the only one I love. And I'll never hurt you again. He promised to cut all ties with the other woman and focus entirely on our marriage. He assured me that he would do whatever it took to regain my trust. I wanted to believe him. For the sake of our marriage and the future I had dreamed of, I chose to give him another chance. In the days that followed, he made an effort to prove himself. He spent more time at home, helping with chores and paying attention to me in ways he hadn't done in months. He brought me flowers, cooked dinner, and even planned small outings to try and rebuild our bond. On the surface, it seemed like he was trying, but deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. His actions felt calculated, as if he were doing them out of guilt rather than genuine love. As much as I tried to move forward, I couldn't forget what had happened. Every time he picked up his phone or came home late, doubt crept into my mind. Was he still talking to her? Was he truly sorry, or was he just hiding his actions better? I found myself constantly questioning him, and my insecurities began to take over. It was exhausting, living in a state of distrust and fear. Despite my efforts to forgive him, the weight of his betrayal lingered. Every smile, every kind word felt tainted by the memory of his infidelity. I couldn't look at him the same way, and I couldn't stop myself from imagining him with her. The pain was like a shadow following me everywhere I went. I wanted to forget, to let go of the past, but my heart wouldn't let me. Months passed, and I tried to convince myself that we were making progress. I told myself that staying was the right thing to do, especially if we wanted to build a family together. My parents encouraged me to forgive him, saying that no marriage is perfect and that everyone makes mistakes. Their words made me doubt myself. Was I being too harsh? Was I expecting too much? I started to question my own feelings, wondering if I was the problem. But even as I tried to move on, I couldn't ignore the signs that he hadn't truly changed. He became distant again, his old habits slowly creeping back. He would come home late, claiming that work was busy, but I couldn't believe him anymore. He was careful not to leave his phone unattended, and I noticed that he often deleted his messages before I could see them. It was clear that he was hiding something, but I didn't have the energy to confront him. One day I decided to follow him. I needed to know the truth, even if it hurt. As I watched him from a distance, I saw him meeting the same woman. They were sitting in his car, talking and laughing as if nothing had ever happened. My heart sank. All the promises he had made, all the efforts he had shown, it was all a lie. He hadn't changed at all. When he came home that evening, I confronted him again. This time I didn't hold back. Why do you keep doing this? I asked, my voice trembling with anger and pain. You promised to change. You promised to stop. Why can't you keep your word? Sis. He looked at me with tears in his eyes, but I had heard it all before. I'm sorry, he said. You're the best wife, the best mother, the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know why I do these things. Please forgive me one last time. Sis. But his words no longer had the power to move me. I had given him one chance after another, hoping that he would change, but he had proven time and again that he couldn't. The love I once felt for him had turned into resentment. I couldn't see him as the man I had fallen in love with. He was a stranger to me now, someone I didn't recognize or trust. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't enough. No matter how much I wanted to save our marriage, it wasn't possible if he wasn't willing to change. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly doubting and questioning, feeling like I was losing myself in the process. It wasn't fair to me and it wasn't fair to our future. That night I made a decision. I couldn't stay in this cycle of betrayal and pain any longer. I needed to take control of my life and choose my own happiness, even if it meant letting go of the dreams I had once held so tightly. It was a difficult choice, but I knew it was the right one. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity and strength. I was ready to take the next step, whatever that might be. The night I decided to leave him was the first time in years that I felt truly at peace. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the only way forward. I realized that I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness and self-respect for a relationship that no longer brought me joy. For too long, I had been trapped in a cycle of hope and disappointment, clinging to the idea that things might one day change. But that hope had faded, and with it so had my patience. I packed my things quietly, taking only what I needed. My heart felt heavy as I thought about the life I had dreamed of building with him. But I knew that dream was no longer possible. As I left, I looked around the house that had once been filled with love and laughter. It felt empty now, a shell of what it used to be. I didn't feel sad anymore, just determined. I moved back to my parents' house, seeking comfort in their familiar embrace. It wasn't easy to explain everything to them, but I knew I had to. They were shocked at first, unable to believe that the man they had trusted with my happiness had betrayed me so deeply. My father was angry while my mother was heartbroken. They both urged me to reconsider, thinking about the children we had planned to have and the life we had built. But I was firm in my decision. I explained that staying would only make things worse for me and for any future we might have tried to build. They eventually understood, though it took time. The hardest part was facing society. Everyone had their opinions, their questions, and their judgments. Some people criticized me, saying I should have stayed for the sake of the marriage. Others pitied me, whispering behind my back about my failure as a wife. At first, their words hurt, but I learned to tune them out. I reminded myself that no one else lived my life or understood my pain. Their opinions didn't matter. What mattered was my own happiness and peace of mind. I knew I couldn't stay in my village forever. The memories of him and the constant questions from others were suffocating. I needed a fresh start, a place where I could rebuild my life on my own terms. I decided to move abroad, taking a job in a city far from home. It was a difficult transition, but it was also liberating. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Living in a new place gave me the chance to rediscover myself. I started focusing on my career, learning new skills, and meeting new people. It wasn't easy at first. There were days when I felt lonely and questioned my decisions. But I reminded myself of why I had left and the strength it had taken to walk away. Every day I grew a little stronger. One of the biggest challenges was learning to trust again, not just others but myself. For so long, I had doubted my own instincts, blaming myself for the failure of my marriage. But as time went on, I realized that the failure wasn't mine alone. I had done everything I could to make it work. I had given him chances, forgiven him, and stayed longer than I should have. In the end, he was the one who had broken our trust, not me. I also learned to focus on my own happiness, something I had neglected for years. I started doing things that brought me joy, traveling, reading, and spending time with people who genuinely cared about me. I made new friends who supported me and reminded me of my worth. Slowly but surely, I began to feel like myself again. The most important lesson I learned was that my value wasn't tied to my relationship status or my ability to keep a marriage intact. For so long, I had defined myself as a wife, thinking that my success in life depended on my ability to make my marriage work. But I realized that my worth went far beyond that. I was strong, independent, and capable of building a life I could be proud of, on my own terms. Looking back now, I don't regret my decision to leave. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also the best decision I could have made for myself. I don't regret my marriage either, despite the pain it brought me. It taught me valuable lessons about love, trust, and resilience. It showed me that I am capable of enduring heartache and coming out stronger on the other side. I hope that one day I can share my story with others who might be going through something similar. I want them to know that it's okay to let go of something that no longer serves you, even if it feels scary. It's okay to put yourself first and to prioritize your own happiness. Life doesn't end when a relationship does. In fact, sometimes it's just the beginning of something better. Now, as I stand on my own, I feel proud of how far I've come. I've built a life that makes me happy, and I've learned to love myself in ways I never thought possible. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I am stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. And for that I am grateful.